Well, welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1969, 70, 71, 72 Carryover League Draft Prep series of videos I'm making. This video here, I'm going to go into the game playing spreadsheet and do some analysis of what I have to do after a season ends and before a draft starts. So usually at the end of the league in September, and the draft is normally the following March or the following year, but this year I'm going to do the draft in the middle of December, but that's still plenty of time to prepare for getting a draft together to make it as interesting and executed as best as I can do it with the information that I get from analyzing the Strat-O-Matic cards that are in play. This is the familiar game player you've been seeing, minus the logos that aren't there presently. But I want to go back. The off season this year, because the 1984 season is stopping abruptly, and then those players are vanishing as we jump back in time. This off season is going to be different than most. So, if you will permit me here, I'm going to jump back to a different season, and this is the fall league that I'm currently playing, for an instance of what happens at the end of a year. What do you have to do to set the league up for the next year in the Carryover League? So this is now the game player. I have them both up. This is the game player for the fall league that has the E-rating column here in it. I'm going to go to a separate tab. It's called Rosters. Now, in this file, I input, after a draft is done, I will copy and paste all the players underneath their team name, starting with the hitters here, 1 through 12, and then the pitchers here. And the pitchers are in order of their spot on the staff, beginning with a number 1 starter indicated with a 1 star, the number 2 star, 3 and 4, etc. And the closers in the very bottom, the 8th, and then works its way back towards the middle into short and long relief. That's how I sort them all. Now, but I want to draw your attention here to these 3 columns, here, here, and here. So, at the end of a year, when you remove 8 players, and in the previous years, the actual year that the card plays is also indicated in the column K here. And you see the numbers 76 for 1976, 77, 78, etc. So these are all currently set. These years and these players are currently set. These numbers are left over for the off season before the draft. And each team, their assignment after removing the 8 cards is to make 3 identifications. Identify who you want to keep of the 8, meaning that you like the player, but his card needs to be removed from the league, but you still want to add the player, so you now have to pick one of the next 4 years he's in the league and choose that card when the draft starts. Then you have 2 more guys who are really still good enough to make the team, but for whatever reason, you have to put them on waivers and they're free to sign elsewhere. And the 3rd column is when a guy retires, but a synonym, I guess, would be when a guy leaves the league, because a guy could leave the league because he's injured and come back a year later. So it would be considered retired. So the way I do my accounting for this is that when I identify a player as a keeper, I identify the player's name that I want to keep over here, and then in the column here I'll put in the number 10,000, which stands for 10,000 tokens, or it could be $10,000 or 10,000 whatever, 10,000 units. It's just a fictional unit I have as a currency that can be potentially traded in the league. And all the players, doesn't matter how good or bad they are, pitcher or hitter, they're all 10,000. So you have 4 of these guys you want to keep, and their values are inputted as 10,000 in this column. then their values for the waivers are 100 tokens for the 2 guys. And then lastly, for 2 guys who get retired, their value would be $1 or 1 unit, 1 token, and the ones go here. Now I have a formula in this cell right here, and it's the same with all the teams. As I scroll down, I'll just scroll down with the arrow here. They all have this is the Red Sox, and then we go to the Yankees. It starts the American League East and scrolls all the way down through the National League West in regular order there. But the formula here adds up the numbers. The texts you see are just notes. It's notes to, they're like comments, like trade that guy to the Yankees, trade this guy to Oakland. They're just notes. But it adds up the numbers, and obviously when you add these numbers together, you're going to come up with this number here, which is 40,202. That's the sum of 10,000 times 4, 100 times 2, and 1 times 2. But the key in doing that is don't look at the total number. Look at, imagine drawing a line here after the 4 and after this 2. And when you look at this number, it says, I'm keeping 4, I'm waiving 2, I'm retiring 2. And there's 32 teams in the league. So if I take 32 times this number, 40202, I get this number, which is 1,286,464. But again, draw a line right here, and what it reveals is the league wants to keep 128 players, 64 guys move through waivers, and 64 are retired. And this grand total up top here adds all of the league's 40202s, and again you get that reconciliation, 1286464. So that's what a team does. Now here's the problem though. I'm going to go to the other spreadsheet because I can write input here. The problem is baseball's not that easy. Things just don't work out that way. I'm going to use Baltimore's template here just as an example. I'm going to erase everything. So this is the Orioles you just saw. Almost said Ravens. This is we're that close to football season, folks. This is the Orioles that you just saw win the World Series. Okay? And then, so I would be denoting here in these 3 columns who I'm keeping, who I'm waiving, who I'm retiring. I don't want to do the analysis now, but I just want to suggest for a moment that there are times that teams may identify that they have, say, 3 guys they want to bring back, and they have only 1 guy they want to waive, and they might have. What happens is you end up, some teams have 4 guys that are retired. And that's what you have to watch, because when a player retires, that card disappears anyway. You know, he's over with. And you can't get to that number 4022. So what you have to do is, and if you look up here, the revaluation is now 30104, is that you have to make trades in the postseason before the draft to get to this team needs to add a keeper, and they have to add a waiver guy, and they have to trade 2 of the retires. This is always going on throughout the league. Some teams have it perfect, right? I mean, some teams have it as, you know, the perfect scenario, and you have 40202 like that. But a lot of times you don't, and you have to do a off-season carousels, I call it. Everybody puts players on the carousel. Think of it like the carousel and the, what do you call that, in the center of the table there, or whatever. You put a player on the carousel. Everybody, it's a trade by proxy. Everybody's putting up players, And eventually there'll be like, 10 keepers out there, 10 waivers out there, and 10 retires. And they just move around freely until the league gets the 4, 2, and the 2. Now, with all that instruction that I've just given, I can now explain what I have to do now. I'm going to do that here by first giving Baltimore's final numbers, which is retiring Dempsey, Duran, Horner, Eddie Murray, Cal Ripken, Butch Winnegar, and the other 2 guys from '84, Mike Boddicker, and Jay Howe. Now that number is 8. It's not 40,000 and something, it's 8. And if you look up top here, instead of 128.6464, your reality is, my reality is, 16 guys are being kept and 240 players are leaving. 16 keepers is this number, no waivers, and this 240, these are all these retirements, starting at the top with Baltimore. Boston's lucky, they have 2 keepers and 6 retirements. 8 for the Yankees. Toronto's keeping a guy. Burlington, all 8 Ohio, all 8 Cleveland, all 8 Detroit, entire division, nobody's coming back. The reason for this exceptional sequence of events is because, exactly, I went back into time. You can make a science fiction film out of this. What happens to the guys of 1984? Where did Kirby Puckett go? Where did Tony Gwynn go? Where did Cal Ripken go? Where did Kevin McReynolds go? What happened to those guys? So in this off season, with not having to abide by the 40202 theory, I've decided I would just abandon that premise for the off season and immediately allow all teams to go with whatever they have here. If you have 0 keepers, you have 0 keepers. If you have 2 keepers, you get to use those 2 keepers. And when you go to the very bottom near the National League West, the LA Dodgers, they have 4 keepers. So when you add it up, 16 guys are being kept, and I call these the Sweet 16. And they will represent the only activity in the off season, as some of the guys I know will be kept by teams, and some of these guys will be traded or moved to a new team via proxy. So that's where I'm going to stop this video. The next video I'm going to do is look at the 16 players who will move or stay in this off season, and then start planning for this incredible influx of new players for the 1969, 70, 71, and 72 seasons. 240 new guys are coming into the league that you haven't seen yet. That's it for tonight. Thanks for checking out this video, and we'll see you again next time.